In my previous video on The Last of Us Part 2's No Return mode, I talked about how to get used to the mode and the best approach to survive and get high scores in the game at large, and its various encounter types. But I didn't touch upon the bosses, which is the focus of this video. There are 6 bosses in No Return, 2 human bosses and 4 infected ones. Barring the Rat King, each of the bosses has a group of minions that you must also defeat in the encounter, and these spawn in waves as you do more damage to the boss. This means, as a general starting rule, you'll want to deal with the minions before dealing damage, and then refocus on the next wave and take them out so as not to get overwhelmed by them whilst trying to deal with the boss. This is more applicable to the infected than human bosses, as infected will simply swarm you, where of course the human AI works more strategically, though having too many humans to deal with at once can still be a problem. With that said, each boss has different strengths and weaknesses, and each map differs considerably in space, cover, and so on, so there are still discrete strategies for each of them. So let's dive into how we approach each. As before, the focus is on how to survive, but also on how to do so with the most points. The arcade bloater boss in No Return is similar to the one in the main game, with 2 significant changes. He takes more damage to kill, and the infected spawns, while not infinite as in the main game, now include a clicker and a shambler as well as runners. It's best to go into this fight with a 2-handed melee weapon, ideally an upgraded one, and either molotovs or pipe bombs plus stun bombs. If you can't go in with a melee weapon, there is a 2x4 in there, so try to save this for the clicker and shambler if you're doing no guns. There should be enough bricks and bottles laying around that you can stun and melee kill every infected that spawns in. Just be careful with bombs that you don't destroy the bottles. The clicker shouldn't be a problem as long as the melee is 2-handed, while with the shambler you can either stun and strike it twice, or burn it with a molotov, then stun and strike. And a stun bomb is more reliable for the shambler than a bottle, to avoid the occasional glitch where it occasionally snaps right out of the stun to explode acid on you. At all times, be aware of the bloater's location, and sprint only when you need to. If it's charging, it's best to dodge it and let it collide with a wall than to run in circles and potentially have it follow you for much longer, making it harder to create space to deal with other enemies. With its acid throwing, listen for the audio cues and be ready to move quickly. Also be aware of where acid lingers, especially when you have both the bloater and the shambler to deal with. As a general rule, deal instant damage to the bloater with a couple of bombs to trigger the first wave, then focus on them before switching back. And for extra points, use a stun bomb to stun the bloater too. Then, if you have a melee weapon to hand, especially an upgraded one, when it's on very little health, you can let it stagger by hitting a wall and then melee to finish it off. As you might notice, I've not mentioned guns in this strategy. You should only use them if you don't have enough supplies to go for the 50 points for not using them, or if you don't yet feel confident in doing no guns. Either way, aim to stun and strike every infected, and finish the bloater with a melee, or if you're using guns, a headshot. The garage bloater takes effectively the same strategy as the arcade bloater, except it's a lot easier to get all stuns and melees because of the loot in the arena, and there's a lot more space to maneuver. Though if you don't go in with the right amount of supplies, it can be harder to successfully do no guns, as this bloater does have more health. The garage bloater has 3 phases of health. During the first, it will stagger about and it's very easy to keep your distance. During the second, it will constantly throw acid, and during the third, it will constantly charge, which makes staggering it when it hits cars a lot easier. You'll want to deal with 2 initial shamblers before dealing any damage to the bloater. A stun and upgraded 2-handed melee weapon should dispatch each quickly. Other waves are primarily runners, but also a few stalkers, who you of course need to be aware of trying to sneak up on you, and 1 clicker. As with the arcade bloater, doing too much damage too fast will spawn more of them in than you might intend, so be sure to switch focus to the infected from the boss and not give yourself the risk of being overwhelmed. Finally, there is a large 2-handed axe in the arena. This is too slow for infected kills, but deals a lot of damage, so save it for the final hits on the bloater. In the theatre infestation, the boss is the super stalker that breaks off from the Rat King, the Rat Prince. He tries to sneak and ambush you, and the area is one with lots of cover and hiding spots built in, so this fight will play differently from the bloaters. In addition, there aren't enough bottles to do no guns and still get points for stunning every enemy. You can do all headshots here, it just may not look like it as the headshot hit marker doesn't show up for the rat prints. The encounter starts with the boss, one normal stalker, and a clicker and a shambler spawned in. As you do damage, other waves will include more clickers and stalkers, so controlling the space and retreating to avoid being boxed in is key. You'll want to take out the clicker and shambler as quickly as you can first, before doing damage to the boss and spawning more enemies. As with the other fights, you'll need to keep moving and giving yourself space to stun and melee or headshot the infected, though this can be trickier here. Be aware as well that the boss does have a chance to throw acid bombs, especially if it's low on health and if you get overzealous trying to melee, forcing it to push you away. Bombs, stun bombs, a shotgun for crowd control, and a decent melee weapon will all come in handy here, but it will take practice and getting used to. For the Rat King, you can get a maximum of 2 stuns, one for the Rat King and one for the Rat Prince, and 1 melee or headshot kill on the Rat Prince. You obviously cannot melee the Rat King, but you also cannot get a headshot either. Therefore, if supplies allow, going for no guns is your best bet for points. However, if they don't, then you cannot rely on supplies in the map too much, so you will have to resort to guns. For phase 1, if you do damage with explosives but the health bar disappears and they don't separate, a single hit will trigger the separation cutscene. This can include just throwing a stun bomb, which will give you points for the stun if you don't want to waste an explosive when it won't add to the damage. You will need to keep your distance throughout from the Rat King, and once they separate, be aware of the Rat Prince's movements, as he will be going for slaps and grabs throughout. Going through every part of the map will allow you to pick up all supplies, and more will spawn on repeat run-throughs if you start to run out. Though it will be in small amounts, literally individual bullets in the case of ammo. And this boss does have a risk of soft locking you by stopping supply spawns after a certain point, which is why it's better to go in prepared if you can. If you have Molotovs, then setting the Rat King on fire will allow other attacks to do more damage. Alternatively, pipe bombs still pack a punch. Trap mines are useful here to compound the damage. Have at least 2 stun bombs to get the stuns, and if you can bring a 2-handed melee weapon, you can make short work of the Rat Prince when you get the space. The Seraphite Elite boss is 2 enemies, a brute and an archer with explosive arrows. They have normal Seraphites with them as well, who you need to contend with. In terms of points, if you have the supplies, then no guns is entirely possible as a strategy here, as long as you have bombs. Depending on what suits your playstyle and loadout, there are 2 options for defensible position here. Behind the counter or in the back room, ideally with trap mines defending your flanks in either case. If you're using guns, then you should be going for stuns and headshots where possible, but also have a shotgun ideally for quick defense to avoid getting overwhelmed. If you're going for no guns, then a modified melee weapon will be helpful alongside pipe bombs or Molotovs to serve a similar purpose, and ideally you want to have stun bombs as well in any case. It's ideal if you can kill both bosses quickly, with bombs right at the start of the encounter, or at least weaken them so they can be easily finished off, rather than hounding you throughout. Focus on the archer especially, since her explosive arrows can be a problem. With them dead, taking on the other enemies whilst going for points becomes a lot more straightforward. Though one of the normal enemies throws Molotovs, so is also best taken out as quickly as possible. As with all human encounters, be aware of guns and especially rifles and shotguns. Use hostages to your advantage and be ready to move when necessary to protect your defensive position. The Rattler Captain is perhaps the hardest boss of the game simply because of it being rattlers and the sheer number of enemies, including 3 dogs. Without a good loadout, including bombs and trap mines, ideally a melee weapon, but also bullets, this becomes so much harder as well. If supplies allow, you can plant a trap mine at the gate near where you spawn to catch the additional wave which spawns after you kill 4 enemies, and another mine at where you actually spawn to catch the nearest dog and handler so they don't set the gate mine off. But either way, you want to get from where you are up to the upper floor of the house as quick as you can, ideally in stealth. Crawling and silent prone dives will help here. I covered prone diving in a previous video, and you should really be familiar with this movement mechanic before you get to the point of fighting this boss if you're going to use it. In any event, The Rattler Captain herself is on the balcony, and if you reach her fast, you can take her out relatively quick, either with a stun bomb and 4 upgraded melee weapon swings, or some combination of bombs and melee. She has pipe bombs and will spam them, so you want her out of the picture quick, and obviously a stun and a melee as the killing blow gives extra points. From there, the bathroom provides a defensible position to take out most of the rest of the enemies. Dogs cannot climb up here. Because of where you are, they will lose you quickly, allowing you to get strikes from that corner when they approach you from either side. Though as you get better at the game, you may also be able to get stuns and headshots as enemies reach the balcony. Once in stealth, and when you have the space to do so, you'll want to kill the enemy on the crate opposite the balcony, as he can one-shot you. Staying in cover around the corner should allow you to peek at the ideal timing on his rotation and headshot him. Or, if you're good enough, stun and then headshot him. This then also allows you to watch from prone on the balcony, while in stealth, to pick off the dogs and any humans who don't climb. Bombs and stun bombs are useful here, particularly if the enemies take cover or you're at risk of being shot when you try to aim. You will sometimes have one dog locked inside the lower floor of the building and have to go down to kill it last. If you're not confident dodging dogs, but also for the extra points, having a brick or stun bomb handy is advisable. For points, you want to do this quicker and with as many stuns, melee kills and headshots as you can muster, but that comes with practice once you're good at making sure you survive. You can do all headshots, but you will have to forgo planting trap mines for this, and again be aware the hit marker doesn't show as a headshot on the boss. All of these strategies are ones that work on grounded difficulty, with a more alert and aggressive AI, and so on lower difficulties you may get away with a lot more. But for survival, and from there high scores, all of these strategies are dependable and a good base from which to build your confidence to play in a way that pays off. If you enjoyed this video, then give it a like and consider subscribing to keep up to date with all my content. Like the video that's just popped up, which YouTube thinks you should watch next. This is a Patreon and member supported channel, so if you want to become a member and unlock custom badges and emojis, early access to my videos, and your name in the credits, then click the join button below. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.